Imagine standing in a place where time itself feels fragile, where every stone, every grain of dust, and every echo beneath your feet carries a story older than empires. Now imagine that under this ancient ground, beneath layers of war, worship, and forgotten history, something has awakened, something powerful, something undeniable. Today, we are not just exploring ruins or examining artifacts. We are uncovering proof evidence so striking, so aligned with Scripture, that it is shaking the foundations of skepticism around the world. Israeli archaeologists have unlocked secrets buried for nearly 2,000 years beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Secrets that match the Gospel accounts in precise detail. Secrets that are forcing even atheists to pause, to reconsider, and to face a truth written in both stone and prophecy. This is not just archaeology. This is revelation. In this journey, you and I will walk step by step through ancient quarries, untouched tombs, forgotten gardens, and the preserved bedrock of Golgotha itself. We will examine discoveries that bridge the gap between faith and science, between belief and evidence, between doubt and destiny. And as each layer of this sacred ground is peeled back, you will see something extraordinary. The earth of Jerusalem is speaking loudly, clearly, unmistakably. So stay with me until the very end, because what you're about to hear may reshape how you see history, how you view Scripture, and how you understand the most important event in human existence. Let's begin. The recent excavations beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre have revealed a remarkable wealth of historical evidence that strengthens the long-held belief that this location is tied directly to the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. Israeli authorities approved the work mainly for structural stabilization, but as archaeologists dug deeper, they uncovered layers that span over 2,000 years. Each layer tells a story that aligns closely with biblical history. The upper layers contain Crusader and medieval construction, but beneath them lies the true treasure, the remains of Constantine's original 4th century church. This confirms that early Christians deliberately preserved and built over what they believed to be the authentic site of Golgotha. Even more compelling is what lies below Constantine's foundations. Archaeologists discovered an ancient limestone quarry dating to the Second Temple period. Its rugged, carved rock surfaces match descriptions of the landscape outside the Jerusalem city walls at the time of Jesus. The quarry's layout shows signs that it was abandoned centuries before the crucifixion era, leaving behind an uneven exposed hill, precisely the kind of terrain that would match the appearance and function of the place of the skull. This geological reality supports the environmental context described in the Gospels. Additionally, the findings include traces of 1st century activity, untouched bedrock cuts, and original surfaces early Christians protected rather than altered. These details show that the memory of the location was preserved deliberately, not guessed centuries later. The merging of geological, architectural, and historical evidence demonstrates that the site beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is not a symbolic location, but a deeply layered record of continuous recognition, veneration, and historical continuity reaching back to the time of Jesus. Archaeologists excavating beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre discovered a large limestone quarry that dates back to the 7th to 1st century BC, a period long before the time of Jesus. This finding is significant because it matches ancient descriptions of the area outside Jerusalem's walls where Golgotha was located. The quarry shows clear evidence of large stone blocks having been cut out for construction projects during the Second Temple period. You can still see the chisel marks, cut lines, and half-finished stones that indicate workers suddenly abandoned the site. This abrupt halt left behind a rugged and uneven rock formation, creating a naturally elevated skull-shaped hill, precisely the kind of landscape the Gospels associate with the place of the skull. As the quarry fell out of use, the area eventually shifted in purpose. What was once a place of heavy labor transformed into open, unused land on the outskirts of the city. This transition is important because Roman crucifixions were often carried out in such locations outside city boundaries, along public roads, and in places visible to passers-by. The archaeological features of the quarry perfectly fit this historical pattern. The evidence also supports the Gospel writer's description of a site accessible to crowds, close to a garden, and near tombs carved into bedrock. What makes the discovery even more compelling is the consistency across time. Early Christian tradition preserved the memory of this exact hill, and Constantine's builders intentionally protected the exposed quarry rock instead of leveling it. Today, the freshly revealed quarry walls and rock surfaces match the descriptions recorded in historical texts, providing a physical anchor to the biblical narrative. This alignment of geology, history, and tradition reinforces the strong possibility that this is indeed the landscape where the crucifixion took place, preserved naturally for over 2 millennia. Soil analysis conducted beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre revealed traces of an ancient garden, offering powerful confirmation of the gospel description that a garden existed near the site of the crucifixion and the tomb. Archaeologists collected soil samples from deep beneath the later construction layers, reaching down to the untouched first-century level. When these samples were studied under microscopes and analyzed for organic remnants, researchers found pollen grains and botanical fragments from plants that were commonly cultivated in the region during that era. Among the discoveries were traces of olive trees, grapevines, and other vegetation associated with first-century horticulture. These findings demonstrate that the area was not barren or industrial at the time of Jesus, but contained managed, cultivated land that would have been part of someone's garden. This aligns strikingly with the New Testament account that the tomb used for Jesus' burial was located within a garden owned by Joseph of Arimathea. The presence of grapevine pollen suggests agricultural activity, possibly vineyards, while the olive pollen indicates trees that may have provided shade, oil production, or simple beautification. These discoveries show intentional cultivation rather than wild, unmanaged growth. This is important because it confirms that the terrain immediately surrounding the quarry had been repurposed into a garden area after quarrying ended. It also helps explain why tombs were carved into the remaining bedrock nearby, as such areas were often used for burial grounds adjacent to gardens. The soil evidence provides an independent scientific layer of confirmation separate from architectural or textual traditions. Even after 2,000 years, the biological fingerprints of this garden remain preserved beneath layers of history. These microscopic traces support the idea that the gospel writers were not offering poetic symbolism, but describing the real environment exactly as it existed in the first century, down to the presence of cultivated plants surrounding the tomb. Archaeologists working beneath and around the Church of the Holy Sepulchre uncovered several first-century tombs carved directly into the bedrock, and this discovery carries immense importance for confirming the biblical setting of Jesus' crucifixion and burial. These tombs date precisely to the time when Jesus lived, matching the burial customs practiced by Jewish families in the first century. They are rock, hewn following the typical pattern of the period, an entrance chamber, interior niches known as kokim or loculi, and carefully carved resting places for bodies. The craftsmanship and style align perfectly with other known first-century burial sites from the Jerusalem area, providing firm archaeological dating. Their presence is significant because the Gospels specifically describe that Jesus was buried in a new tomb located near the site of the crucifixion. The fact that these tombs sit just meters away from the ancient quarry surface strongly supports the idea that this region transitioned from an industrial zone into a burial and garden area once the quarrying stopped. Jewish burial practices required tombs to be outside the city walls, but close enough for families to visit, making this location ideal. These discoveries also confirmed that the area was not only used as a hill for executions, but simultaneously served as a burial zone, exactly what the biblical narrative indicates. The proximity of these tombs to the exposed quarry rock beneath the church creates a unified picture, a landscape that matches every detail described in the New Testament. The excavated tombs prove that this site was active during the exact historical period in question, eliminating later speculation that the location was chosen arbitrarily by early Christians. Instead, the archaeological layers reveal continuous memory and preservation of the site. The presence of authentic first-century burial chambers strengthens the historical credibility of the gospel account and provides a physical anchor for identifying the place where Jesus was laid to rest after the crucifixion. When researchers examined the deepest architectural layers beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, they found compelling evidence that early Christians in the 4th century accurately identified and preserved the site connected to Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. The structures built under Emperor Constantine and guided by his mother Helena were not randomly placed or based on vague memory. Instead, archaeological findings show that Constantine's builders intentionally exposed and protected specific rock formations, tombs, and quarry surfaces that early believers had venerated for nearly 3 centuries. When Constantine ordered the construction of the first church around AD 326, his architects unearthed what Christians at that time already considered sacred, the rock of Golgotha and the tomb believed to be that of Jesus. The recent excavations confirm these records by revealing preserved bedrock features that Constantine's engineers chose not to remove, despite the enormous difficulty of building a large church around them. This deliberate preservation of the landscape is crucial because it demonstrates a strong continuous tradition going back to the earliest generations of Christians in Jerusalem. The builders removed a Roman temple built by Hadrian, which had been placed directly over the Christian holy site, likely as a way to suppress Christian worship. Beneath Hadrian's temple, archaeologists found the original surfaces early Christians protected. These architectural layers validate the historical accounts that Helena identified the site based on long-standing local memory that had survived persecution and Roman occupation. The alignment of the Byzantine church layout with the exposed quarry hill and nearby tomb shows that the early Christians believed these specific features to be authentic markers of the crucifixion and resurrection. The discovery proves that the early Christian community preserved an unbroken tradition regarding the location of Golgotha. It also shows that Constantine's builders went to extraordinary lengths to protect the very stones and rock formations central to the gospel narrative, embedding them within the foundations of the church that still stands today. In recent years, the discoveries beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre have created an unexpected ripple across academic and skeptical communities, prompting even atheist and non-religious researchers to reconsider long-held assumptions about the historical reliability of the gospel accounts. While skepticism toward biblical narratives has often rested on the belief that these stories were written too late or based on unreliable memory, the new archaeological evidence challenges that position by presenting physical, measurable data that cannot be easily dismissed. Findings such as the ancient quarry, first-century tombs, cultivated garden soil, and preserved bedrock features all align precisely with the environmental and cultural details described in the New Testament. This alignment is so specific that many scholars who once treated the gospel descriptions as symbolic or fictional now acknowledge that the writers displayed an intimate, accurate understanding of Jerusalem's first-century landscape. Some atheist archaeologists have expressed surprise at the degree of consistency between the discoveries and the biblical text, noting that such coherence is statistically unlikely to be accidental. The evidence suggests not only that early Christians preserved the correct location of Golgotha, but also that the surrounding features, tombs, gardens, and the abandoned quarry were exactly as the gospel writers described. For skeptics, these discoveries do not automatically lead to theological conclusions, but they do compel a reevaluation of the historical foundations underlying the crucifixion and burial narratives. The notion that the site was chosen arbitrarily or invented centuries later becomes increasingly untenable in the face of physical proof layered beneath the church. This shift among secular scholars demonstrates that archaeology has introduced an objective dimension to a debate that was once dominated by philosophical or ideological positions. As more evidence emerges, the lines separating faith and academic inquiry become narrower, forcing even non-believers to acknowledge that the physical landscape of Jerusalem strongly supports the historical core of the gospel story. As we stand before the weight of these discoveries, one truth becomes unmistakably clear: the story of Golgotha is not a myth preserved by tradition, it is history engraved into the earth itself. The quarry beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the first-century tombs, the traces of cultivated gardens, and the preserved rock surfaces all come together to form a powerful, unified testimony. Each layer uncovered by archaeologists aligns with the accounts written in the Gospels, showing us that the early Christians preserved this sacred ground with precision and purpose. Even skeptics and atheists, confronted with undeniable evidence, now find themselves compelled to reconsider the historical reliability of the crucifixion and resurrection narrative. The stones truly do speak, and they echo the same story written in Scripture, that this is the place where history and eternity met. Golgotha is more than a geographical location. It is a witness, one that has survived empires, wars, and centuries of silence, to tell the world that the events recorded in the New Testament unfolded exactly where faith has always pointed. These findings remind us that belief is not blind. It stands firmly upon the foundations of history, archaeology, and truth. And as new discoveries continue to surface, they reinforce the unshakable reality that the crucifixion and resurrection were not symbolic tales, but real events that shaped the course of humanity. Thank you for taking this journey through history, faith, and archaeological revelation. May these insights inspire your work, strengthen your message, and bring clarity to all who hear it. Wishing you great success, powerful impact, and the very best of luck as you share this truth with the world. God bless you, and thank you for being part of this exploration.